Hello, my name is Yves Sandfort. I'm the CEO of the comdivision group, and today I'm going to cover VMware vCloud Automation Center 6.0 basic hypervisor blueprints. Once you started a browser, navigate to your vCAC appliance /shell UI app. Once on the SSO login page, type in your user account, in our case vCAC_admin at cab.vdc.cdip.net, password as the usual one, and then we click login. Once the system has confirmed our login credentials, we will immediately start creating an actual blueprint. For that, we are going to navigate to the Infrastructure tab and select Blueprints from the left-hand menu. And then from the top menu within the Blueprints tab, we are going to actually select New Blueprint, Virtual vSphere vCenter. You can also see there are a couple of other blueprints predefined, but for the moment we are going to stick with the vCenter blueprint. Once the system has loaded the creation field, we are going to actually enter a name. In our case, we will call this machine CentOS 6.4 small, as it is a small CentOS machine we are going to create, and then we are going to give it a decent description. In our case, we are going to call it Master Blueprint of a CentOS 6.4 VM. There are also a few options here. For example, the blueprint option Master Copyable, that allows us later on to copy blueprints. We are not going to enable that for this one, and we will come back to the display location on request at a later point in time. For this moment, we are just going to fill in the basic information. We will leverage the reservation policy we created in one of the last videos. And once we confirm that, we are also going to define that we want to have this machine archived for at least 1 day. That means if the machine is actually expired, then it's going to stay for 1 day. We are not going to take a machine prefix, and we are going to also define the costs per day. So this is all the generic information. Next, we are going to switch to the build information. In our case, the blueprint type will stay as server. We are going to create a linked clone, and there is only one workflow for that, so that's pretty straightforward. Next, we need to decide where we want to actually get the clone from. For that, we are going to click on the little 3-dot button beside the clone from, and this will actually show us a list of all the virtual machines we have collected so far. In our case, we pick CentOS 6.4, which is a virtual machine on our vCenter server. We click Next, and the system will present us with a number of snapshots. We select one, click Finish, click OK, and you can see that the machine has actually picked the machine name and the snapshot name in here. Another important piece is we are going to leverage a customization specification which you can define in vSphere upfront. In our case, it's called CentOS. This allows us to finally define the base parameters. Also, we are going to define the basic sizing parameters for CPU, memory, and storage in a min and max fashion. Finally, we are going to add a custom property. In our case, we need to tell vSphere the OS type. It's vMware.virtualcenter.operating system, and in our case, it's RHEL6 guest as the OS. Be sure to not put any typos in here, because if you create typos here, the machine will actually provision and then will be immediately destroyed again. Next, we are going to quickly validate the action screen and then hit OK to confirm our new blueprint. The action tabs actually describes all the operations which can be operated on a machine. You will later on through entitlements customize the permissions for these. Finally, hit OK to save our new blueprint into the system. Once the blueprint has been created, we need to publish it as we are going to leverage it at a later point in a few minutes when we create the catalog item so that users can actually create it. For that, again, it needs to be published. This is a new feature as of 6.0. In 5.2, we never had to publish any specific machine. Confirm that you really want to publish the machine. The only point here is you cannot easily unpublish a machine again, so be a bit careful with the fact that you will make it available. However, just publishing it doesn't mean that the machine is going to be available for everybody. It only means that we are going to make the machine possibly available in the catalog. Next, we are going to prepare our catalog. For that, we need to switch to the administration tab. And then within the administration tab, we are going to go and configure the actual catalog. So click administration, select catalog management from the left-hand menu. And the first thing we are going to define is a catalog service. A service is in many cases more like a grouping of parameters within or of objects within the catalog. So don't get confused by the term services. It is more or less the grouping parameter. I will get back to that once we see the catalog in action later on. For that to be created, just hit the plus button at the top to define a new service. We are going to call the service in our case CentOS, as we want to publish all our CentOS machine under this specific service type. You also can give it a description which can be quite helpful for other users to understand what exactly you're trying to achieve with the specific services. If you have an icon library, you could also specify a specific icon within the system just to make that work. The status defines whether that specific service is going to be available, and the hours define during which hours this service is becoming available. You could also specify a dedicated owner or support team, again to help the user provide or leverage certain functionalities of this specific service. The change window defines during which hours can changes be made to this specific services category. Once you have completed all your necessary data entries, make sure you click add, but don't forget to set the status to active before you add the services category. Again, click add to store it. Once we have defined the services categories or services, we are going to need to entitle users through these specific services. But before we do that, let's manage the catalog items and tell the system which individual items are going to belong to this specific service. In our case, we only have one item for catalog services so far, which is our blueprint. We are going to select it, select add, so that the system will add this to this specific catalog then. Click close. And switch to the entitlement section to create a machine entitlement. Click plus to create a new entitlement. We are going to create one for development users. Give it a description. You can also expire it at a specific date and time. Again, make sure that you set the status properly. In our case, we are going to set it to active. And you need to specify users and groups which this entitlement applies to. In our case, we are going to entitle the vCAC admin to this specific group. And we are going also to apply an additional user for this specific resource. In this case, it's the development group manager. So this is a very powerful entitlement we create here because we add more users to it. Finally, we are going to add the development user as well. Next, we need to define which services are going to be leveraged by this entitlement. We only have one. We are going to select that. You can already see on this screen that you could apply specific policies to these items, but we will cover that in a later video. For the moment, just press OK to get the basic features up and running. Next, let's pick the catalog item. In our case, CentOS 6.4 small, select it, hit OK. For the entitled actions, we are going to leverage the different machine types. So depending on the category, you have individual categories of parameters and features and actions here. The point is there is no select all button, sadly enough, and I'm not going to cover each individual action entitlement here in this segment because it's just too many. Most of them are pretty much speaking, and you have seen some of them when we created the blueprint already in the Actions tab, as the Actions tab only defines which options are going to be available for that specific machine. These options here actually entitle the user to actually leverage these specific machine entitlements. Depending on the size of the entitlement, it can be quite a lot of individual actions you need to set before the user can actually do anything. In our case, we said we wanted to create a pretty powerful role, so therefore we leveraged a bunch of individual actions and combined them here. Once you are happy with your selection, hit the OK button to save this entitlement. Be sure to click the Add button at the end. Do not go away out of this Add Entitlement screen, as in such case data would be missing. So we have now done the basic catalog setup. We have created a service. The catalog item comes from our blueprint, and we have done an entitlement. For this to finally work, we should quickly log out of the system and log back into the system, just to ensure that all the new entitlements and permission settings have actually been changed in the system and are applied to the system. So again, log into the system through the SSO instance, in our case again with user vCAC admin at cap.vdc.cdip.net, password the usual one, and then hit the login button again. Once within the system, again, we are going to switch to the Catalog tab. And then from the Catalog tab, you will see that the system has created a new category or a new services group, in our case CentOS. In the brackets one, you can see that we actually have one specific service within this one. And you can see our master blueprint CentOS 6.4 small, which we are going to click request on now. Just hit request. It typically takes a couple of seconds for the system to come up with all the necessary screen information, because that depends on the individual system and component and service you leveraged. You can also see you could change the number of machines, number of CPUs, memory, etc. in here, and define who is going to be the owner. In our case, we just stick with the current defaults, hit submit, click OK, and then wait for the machine to be created. If you want to follow the process, you can actually go to the Requests tab and see the status of the machine generation over there. From a systems perspective, the system is going to actually create a machine in vSphere now, clone it from the existing master version, and then going through the customization scripts to make that machine fully available. Next, let's validate if our blueprint was created successfully. We click refresh data and we can see that the status is now successful. Once a machine has been successfully created from a blueprint, we will also see it in the items pane, but we will come back to that in just a couple of minutes. For the moment, it's more interesting for us to actually create a second blueprint, which we will actually create later, leverage later on when we get to the multi-machine blueprints in another videos and cover that in more detail. For that specific case, we are going to switch now to the infrastructure tab. And within the infrastructure tab, we are going to go into the blueprint segment and then hit blueprints. And once we are in the blueprint screen, we can then finally leverage the specific parameters of the VM we just created to create a new blueprint. So let's click on blueprints. Next is we are going to tell the system select new blueprint again, virtual vSphere vCenter. And we will give that specific blueprint now a name. In our case, we are going to call it CentOS second small machine. You can give it a description if you think it's sensible. In our case, we will call it MasterLink Clone Machine or MasterLink Clone Blueprint. Again, you have the blueprint options. You can define that this blueprint is master copyable. You can request the location to be displayed, or you can also define whether it's shared or not. In this case, we want to have it copyable because we will leverage that feature at a later point in time. Also, we are going to define the reservation policy again, set it to compute policy, and leave the machine prefix to be business group driven. Again, we need to specify a number of archive days. In our case, again, we will set it to 1, and the daily cost will be $10 or $5. Next, hit the build information tabs. Again, this blueprint type will be of type server. The action will be link clone again, and the provisioning workflow will soon update. That typically, depending on the system, typically takes a few milliseconds. Then click the three-dot button again, which will link us to the clone from button. You will see within the within the vSphere environment that we have a new virtual machine showing up. In our case, that's the just created dev-001 machine, and we will leverage that for to become the master for our specific blueprint. So as you can see, there are the machines we saw in the lab before, and there is the new one which is going to be called, or which is dev-001. We are going to leverage that specific machine now for the next part. So for that, click the machine and hit the next button. This machine doesn't have its own snapshot, and as we know from the previous video, we need a snapshot for a link clone. So in this case, we are going to create a new snapshot for this specific virtual machine. We are going to click New Snapshot, and the name of our new snapshot is going to be Master Link Clone Snapshot, and then we hit OK for that specific snapshot to be created. That just takes a couple of seconds. It's typically rather fast. And once that snapshot is created, we can create additional link clones from this machine. Keep in mind, as we said before, that within vCAC per default, a link clone can only have 20 children. So this is also a methodology to make more link clones available in your specific environment. So the snapshot is now created, and we can continue from here. Next, once the snapshot is created, hit the close button, and then we can click finish to finally store our linked clone master machine. So again, hit close. You can see that the new snapshot is presented in the system. Next, click finish for the individual snapshot to be saved with the blueprint, and then you could move along and publish this machine. So again, click finish, and next we are going to provide all the other main parameters we need. Hit OK for the blueprint to be finished. Again, the next one we need to specify is the customization specification. In our case, that's just CentOS. We specify the machine resources, minimum and maximum number of CPUs, memory, and storage for the system to be used. So in our case, we want to have it between 1 and 2 CPUs, 512 to 2048 megabytes of memory, 8 to 16 gigabytes storage. In the properties pane for the customization to work, we need to again specify the VMware.virtualcenter.operating system parameter so that the system knows how to actually kick off the customization within the system, so that vCenter actually knows how to process. In our case, that's RHEL 6 guest. And remember to always press the green check mark before you hit any OK button, because there are some issues that in some places of the application it is not always that self-confidential that you press OK and everything will work. Once everything is populated, just hit the OK button, and the system is ready to provision new machines from this specific blueprint. Depending on what you plan to do with this blueprint, you should also publish this. Therefore, in our case, again, we are going to just click mouse over here, hit publish, confirm that you want to publish it, and with the publish mechanism, the machine will actually show up within the catalog items so that it can be leveraged later on with any of the vCAC catalogs. So again, thank you for watching this rather long video. In this case, we covered the VMware vCloud Automation Center 6.0 basic hypervisor blueprint features, leveraging linked clones, creating a blueprint of a blueprint. My name is Yves Sandfort. You can contact me at my Twitter handle, that's @Yves Sandfort, or via email at y.sandfort@comdivision.com.